Good morning and thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be going through with you this Do More with Microsoft 365 journey. And for those of you who haven't joined a Planet webinar before, this is obviously something that we've been doing and we do very often. More importantly, we've been doing this for Microsoft over the last 6 months. We've been doing this as a continued series around Microsoft Azure. And as we move into the later half of this year, we're transitioning to talk about Microsoft 365 in the wider sense. And this is the first part of that. So I really appreciate you being with us today. And I say, it's always nice to do these things. I will caveat the start by saying, yes, this content does come from Microsoft. So you'll notice that it does have some very Americanized terminology and figures in it. We will do our best to convert the dollars into real money because that's what we all care about. But before we start, I'm James Dell. So I'm head of technical architecture and associate director at Planet IT. And this is part of my job. So I get to talk to you guys about products and solutions, ultimately making sure that when you're making a decision about technology, you're buying the right thing and choosing the right product for you. My background is IT management. I did that through multiple sectors, so through healthcare, through education, and ultimately decided that I was sick of people saying no to me all the time, mainly because it was, can I spend more money? No, you can't. So I decided I'd jump over the fence. And I've been doing this now for nearly 8 years. So it's a great place to be. And I'm really happy today to be joined by Lewis, one of my technical architects. Lewis, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, James. Hi, I'm Lewis. I'm technical architect here at Planet. I specialize in Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Azure Compute. And my day-to-day looks exactly like James's. He hands more work over to me. Anything that comes out of this will probably go my way anyways. But yeah, I've worked on 365 and Azure for 10 years now. It's all I've really ever worked on in my career, so I know it inside and out.
Great, thanks, Lewis. What I was going to say was whatever happens today, I'm going to sit back and let Lewis talk about this because Microsoft is his bag and it's his favourite thing. No, I'm joking. I am here for the foreseeable. So let's not take any kind of further time and let's crack into it. The first thing I will say is there is a Q&A function inside of Teams. You will have noticed that if you've ever used Teams before. If you haven't, it's on the top of your bar. It literally is a Q&A. Those questions are, you can do a direct Q&A, you just ask a general question. You can use the chat. Anything you send through, we will try and answer. Whoever isn't talking will be reading those Q&As. I have dropped a load of discussion points into that Q&A already, so it'd be great if you could answer some of those questions because that will help inform what we talk about today and obviously where we focus. So I've dropped in about 5 questions just to give you a bit of a start on it. So if you've got anything you really want to cover, that's a great place to drop that into and to get us moving in the right direction. Because today is ultimately about you. There is some content that we do need to cover, but we do have time in this hour and a half to talk about the things that are important to you. And obviously, if some things are less important to everyone on this call, then what we're going to do is focus on things that are more important. But without further ado, let's talk about what we are going to cover today. So the good news is that we're talking about Microsoft 365 Business. Now, I'm going to start by demystifying that a little bit because Microsoft are very good at names, not. Microsoft 365 Business, when we talk about that suite, is the SMB focused product set. So for Microsoft, SMB is anything from 0 users, which obviously is not a business at all the way through to 299 users. When you eclipse 299 and go into 300, that's when Microsoft class you as an enterprise. And you may have heard of the term Microsoft 365 Enterprise or E3, E5. That's an enterprise product. That's designed for the user base of anything over 299 users. And we're not going to cover those features today. They are the same in parts, but not completely the same. And we will be doing one of those specifically focused around the enterprise suites. Today's focus is around SMB, SME, so the Microsoft 365 business range, as it were. So we're going to cover the why you want Business Premium, right? So Business Premium is the top tier of the Microsoft Business Suite, and we'll get more into that as we go into this. But ultimately, a lot of people don't really know the value of Business Premium. And that's why this is the place we chose to start with this journey around the modern work side of Microsoft, because ultimately, if you can get the most value from the product, you're going to see benefits elsewhere. So what we're going to look to today is we're going to look at the key challenges that face small and medium businesses in kind of this hybrid work world. We've all ended up in a hybrid work world because of COVID, and it's changed the way that we work. Now, we're also going to look at why you should trust Microsoft for security. And I think we can all say, and I can say it because, having been in this industry for far too long, that Microsoft weren't the ones to trust for security 15 years ago. Things have moved on a long way, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Microsoft 365 and how it can reduce your IT complexity. I think one of the things that became clear coming out the back of kind of the 2010s into up to 2020 was that IT had got a bit too complex. We had too many systems doing too many things, too many flavors of it. And something that Microsoft has started becoming really good at is simplifying that down, and 365 is part of that journey. We're then going to touch on secure productivity and how 365 can enable that. And then we're going to touch on the big thing that everyone's talking about at the moment, which is AI. In Microsoft's sense, Copilot is their badging of AI. So we're going to talk about Copilot for 365. Well, while that's not directly a feature of Business Premium, it's definitely worth talking about because actually it's one of those kind of outliers that we need to talk about. So that's the keys we're going to cover today. There's going to be lots more in there, but obviously that's where we're at. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add to that, Lewis?
No, I think you covered everything there.
It's all good. If I'm doing the right job, we know we're doing the right thing. So let's talk about, from a Microsoft point of view, what's top of their customers' minds, right? So whether you decide to make remote work options permanent across your business, like many of us have. So at Planet, we made that decision that our workforce is completely hybrid. They can do whatever you need to. You work where you want to. Or you want to make collaboration easier, regardless of where people are. Obviously, you need to take advantage of the tool set. And I think that lots of people were kind of forced into making that decision when COVID hit, and it was like, right, we'll throw Teams out there, and we'll maybe dabble with a bit of Zoom, and we'll do this, and we'll move people to data to SharePoint, data to OneDrive. Maybe the most of it wasn't done in a normal IT project sense, right? Most of it was done in a kind of a let's make it happen overnight and then live with it. And that's obviously opens up some security concerns. It also opens up sort of supportability, compatibility issues, and that's what we're gonna look at. So Microsoft is seeing continued challenges around remote work, even into 2024, where we are now. For example, 43% of remote workers do not feel included in meetings. It can be a challenge to balance the needs of remote and in-person Teams meetings. And in many businesses, the future will increasingly see a mix of both. Many business leaders fear that productivity has been negatively impacted since shifting to remote work. While case studies show that this isn't necessarily the case, you need increased visibility and connection to your staff to help get the most from your team. Additionally, more employees are using personal devices at work, which is great for engagement and great for availability and productivity, but has some dramatic security risks and data loss risks, right? And we all know that people are terrible at updating their phones, so God knows what their personal devices are like and how they're engaging with that. So it's very much one of those things of, we know the world has changed, but the data's not tying up right. You hear, I certainly hear it a lot. People go, yeah, well, we're trying to shift away from remote working and try and bring people back to the office more, or we're trying to empower people to do more things with personal devices, and maybe they're challenging in terms of getting that done. And I think you can see from the stats on the slide that this is something that Microsoft are doing research on, and they continue to do research on this kind of SME space. And you'll see that people are still struggling with this, regardless of the fact that we've been doing this for 4 years now. So one of the things that I think is, whilst we're talking about stats and figures, is worth mentioning, as I mentioned at the start, is Microsoft Copilot. So whilst the adoption of tools like Teams, right, let's roll Teams back. Teams was a Microsoft product for a long time, and it was an on-premise product that was a messenger, which Office communicator, which was probably 2008, 2009. Then it got rebadged under the Link banner by Microsoft, which was Microsoft Link, again, an on-premise product. And then Microsoft bought Skype, And they badged Microsoft Skype up and made it a business product around 2013 into kind of 2015, 16. And then coming into 2017, Microsoft launched Teams, which was a focused product that was inside of 365, and that's gone through multiple versions and then eventually has killed off the on-premise Skype product and the cloud Skype product. That journey probably took Microsoft best part of 10, 15 years to go from a product to a product that's being used as heavily as it is now. That isn't the case when we look at something like generative AI. In this specific case, we're talking about ChatGPT, the underlying large language model that bases all of the functions of Copilot off of. So you can see in this graph, we talk about things like the mobile phone, the internet, and Facebook, how long it took them to get to 100 million users. Most of these took multiple years. Even Facebook, we think about how massive Facebook kind of exploded in 2008. It took it 4.5 years to get to 100 million active users. The mobile phone took 16 years to get to 100 million users. And the annex point where that really spikes up is around 2007, 2008, when smartphones come out, it really ramps up. ChatGPT, LLMs didn't have that kind of slow curve. In 3 months, ChatGPT went from having no users to having 100 million daily users. Now, that just shows how much this is embedded in. And obviously what Microsoft have been doing with this Copilot journey is they've realized that this technology needs to be inside the product. So we'll talk more about Copilot through this, but essentially the reason we're talking about it so much is because if we weren't talking about it, you're missing out, right? And it's one of those things of we don't have the time that we potentially had with tools like Microsoft Teams or 365 in general, where we can have that kind of slow burn walk towards the solution. We have to move at it at some speed. So continuing that kind of theme around AI and all those kind of pieces, ultimately AI-powered tools represent an enormous opportunity for businesses, especially in the SMB space. So 64% of businesses are struggling to find time and energy to get their work done. Now, we've all been there. We've all been that, that deadline, that 5 o'clock deadline. You know that you've burnt through as many hours as you can in the day, and you've spent so much time on unproductive things that take up your time, sifting through emails, doing email responses, writing documents. 3 times of the amount of which time is spent in Microsoft Teams and calls has increased since 2020. So we're talking about, today we're talking specifically about Business Premium and about the 365 suite. But obviously you can see that there's a huge increase in Teams usage. So the more time you spend on Teams calls, the more time you're in meetings, the less work you're doing. 70% of those share that they would delegate as much as possible to AI to lessen their workload. Now, having been someone who's been using Copilot now for several months, I definitely have offloaded a lot of my workload to AI into Copilot, and it definitely does make a difference. And obviously, it's 2 times the likelihood of a leader saying that AI will provide value by boosting productivity versus cutting headcount. Ultimately, everywhere we've seen people implement Copilot and AI, what the one big benefit they get out of the product set is time. That's what you get back, is you get time back. It's not saying it's a golden bullet and it's going to make your life instantly better. But what it will do is start chipping away at those repetitive tasks, those things that are time consuming that don't need to be. The most real world example I can give you is just recently I came off of 10 days of not working because I moved house and I had no internet and I couldn't do anything really of much use. I live in a signal dead spot. So I was kind of behind my time. When I came back, I had about 1,400 unread emails. Using Microsoft 365 Copilot, it was able to sift through my emails and pull out the ones that were focused and important to me. And where I was in an email chain that was maybe 20 or 30 deep by this point, it was able to offer me a summary of all these emails and say, these are the things that you should worry about. Now, that alone saved me reading all of those 30 emails because actually it pulled the focus to where it needed to be. And it meant that I could respond quickly and take action on it. It also was able to look through all of the Teams meetings that had happened that I was invited to while I was away, but I didn't attend, and give me the highlights, the key takeaways And specifically, when someone in the meeting would say, James would do this, it was able to reference and create me a task to do that. So I was able to come back to a task list of going, great, well, I wasn't able to attend that project update meeting, but I know what is expected of me today now that I'm back, rather than having to ring everyone and say, great, what do you want me to do about this project? Great, what do you want me to do about this? It's that value that these tools are bringing. They're not going to make you instantly, overnight twice as efficient, but actually they can make a big impact. Lewis, I'm not sure if you have anything you want to add to that.
Just that I also use AI quite a lot, and there used to be quite a using AI was like a bit taboo. People were against it. They saw it as a cheat or whatever. That is no longer the case. It's very much companies are pushing now to use it to make jobs more efficient. We've seen companies, clients of ours, who are putting in hiring freezes because they're going to expect AI to pick up their workload as the business grows. I use it all the time. I use it for scripting. PowerShell script is absolutely great. Use it to make PowerPoints, bulk text. It's not always perfect. It's got a long way to go, but it's here to stay. Microsoft is 100% in on AI. I actually went to one of their events yesterday, or the day before, with Microsoft, and the message was they're 100% in. They're not backing down. So you either need to get involved or keep up to date with it, because you don't want to get left behind.
And that's it, isn't it? If you see the updates that are happening to the client side of things, so the Outlook app, the Teams app, everything is around integrating Copilot. If you use the 365 app for your iPad or iPhone recently, they've actually put the Copilot button in the middle of the taskbar now. It's kind of like, it isn't going away, right? We're not going to be able to avoid it anytime soon. It's going to become part of your everyday life. That said, obviously, security has always been the thing that should be top of your mind. If you're joining this and you're going, security is not the thing I care about, you're probably prioritizing it in the wrong way. Security should always be key whenever we're making a decision about it. So, employees are working from more locations than ever. And the thing is, you've got to be confident that that data is safe. Something that when you have a traditional approach, so if we go back 2018, 2019, for many businesses, the perimeter of your network was the physical perimeter of your organization, and your data and your organizational assets were inside of that physical perimeter, protected by a network firewall. And that was where you had most things. Yes, you probably had 365, but for most people, 365 in 2016, 17, 18 was being used for email, a bit of communication, but it wasn't really being used heavily for file storage, data storage, and other things it can do. That shift happened, but what that's done is that's basically dissolved that perimeter. It's dissolved the edge of your network, and it's basically meant that you've now got a perimeter that is ever expanding. And then with the thought of bring your own device and user device choice and different platforms, the ability for people to be dynamic and be switching between using Mac OS and an iPad, or an iPad and a Windows device, or picking up their Android phone, there's this huge attack surface that you've got to think about. So you've got to think about keeping your data safe. So regardless of how large or small your business may be, security should be top of the mind for everyone. However, small and medium businesses often face a situation which is that vulnerabilities and threats that enterprises see do not have they don't have the same level of specialization or same level of protection, because combating those threats is easy when you're an enterprise because you've got a SOC, you've got a security team, you've got all this other stuff. But actually, when you're a smaller business, I've got a team specialized in security just really isn't kind of very common. So Microsoft have seen a 300% increase in ransomware attacks in the past year, with more than half of those targeted specifically at small, medium enterprises. Now, not surprisingly, leaders of these businesses see cyber threats becoming a growing risk, and ultimately, with the average cost of these data breaches exceeding $100,000, £80,000, somewhere around that region, it quickly makes sense to consider investing upfront in some kind of high levels of security. At the same time, in this kind of hybrid work world, you need solutions that are built to protect your business, whether people are working or not, whether they're online or offline. Not to mention it needs to be easy, and it needs to take up very little time from your core activities. Now, we see this being a huge problem. We see businesses that are compromising on security to get things done. And obviously, the smaller you are, that tends to be more the mentality in terms of we've just got to make money and keep the business afloat. So therefore, focusing on keeping this bit of security in place becomes a bigger challenge. Now, when we talk outside of the scope of what today is, and we talk about things like Cyber Essentials Plus, many organizations are being forced that way. And the biggest challenge we're seeing when we talk about small, medium businesses is that they're being asked to achieve Cyber Essentials Basic, and the Plus certification. And they're struggling because the basic principles of security, they just can't implement to those standards easily, or they haven't been, and it becomes a huge investment to get them there. But for many, it's becoming a requirement as part of their ongoing commitment to their customers. So we talked a lot about the whys, right? So let's talk about putting this all together and kind of the benefits that Microsoft 365 as a solution offers. So the first thing is it's all in one place. So Microsoft have done a great job of pulling together disparate tools into a single, concise product set, a user interface. Now, I will be the first to criticize their naming convention and the way they do things, but ultimately bringing it together, putting it at people's fingertips is something they've done really well. So it's all about enabling people-led transformation with real-time collaboration tools. You will have noticed over the last few years how heavily embedded live editing, sharing, integration with Teams is, the integration with collaboration, with live commenting, with real-time editing together. All that comes together. It's all about working together. But Microsoft have put a huge focus on safeguarding your business with technology you can trust. And Microsoft have done a lot of work to try and shake off the reputation they had for security in the past, or lack of security as it may have been known, and put that focus onto giving you a platform that works and is secure in nature, and you can trust the security that ties into it. And ultimately do this by reducing cost, by reducing the impact, reducing the number of products you need to buy, the number of bits and pieces you need to make this happen. They're trying to answer three clear market trends. The focus on a digital strategy, regardless of your business size, focus on making sure that you have a concise digital strategy, putting security at the top of the mind, and in my head, top of the list, and offering you financial stability, offering you the ability to understand what your costs are going to be, not just today, but moving forward. Something that was always a problem with on-premise equipment because you didn't quite know when it was going to give up the ghost and fail. So you may ask, like, what is 365? I think that many of you on this call will be using 365 and understand 365, but it's always good to talk about what Microsoft see 365 as, and that's why this slide's in there for them, because I think they want to make it very clear the way that they see the breakdown. So 365 for them is a secure, cost-effective and reliable cloud solution for real-time collaboration and secure work from virtually anywhere. It includes Teams, cloud storage, and familiar Office apps with the advanced security options that they've embedded into it. You can use it to chat, call, host online meetings, and collaborate in real time. Essentially, it is a one-stop shop for a business. If you were starting up a brand new greenfield business today, 365 for many would be all you need to get up and running. Now, for many of you on this session, you'll be currently using a mix of licenses. Probably many of you will be using Business Standard or Business Basic. And for a long time, that was the best option because a lot of the features we're going to talk about today just didn't exist. So, they just weren't the products they are now. But realistically, when we start talking about Business Premium, what Business Premium is today, it's a very different product, and that's why it's important to talk about it. Business Premium is the kind of collection of everything that Microsoft does so well, made specifically for a price point that would work for nearly every business, and that's the approach to it. So let's talk about what's included in it. So the first thing is it's secure productivity, right? So you can run your business from anywhere with secure, comprehensive, AI-powered cloud solutions that make hybrid work possible. So the reason this is bundled under the Business Premium line is because many of these features exist specifically inside of the licensing that comes with Business Premium. So while some of these features will exist in some form in other licenses, the key here is to get all of this, you need Business Premium. So it's built from a zero trust foundation. So we're about keeping your data secure from unauthorized access, with multi-factor authentication. Lewis will talk about risk-based access control later on. And it's defending against cyber attacks with enterprise-grade protection. Now, the big thing here is that's Defender, Microsoft Defender, and the work they've done to tie that together. You've then got simplified endpoint management, or as I would refer to it, Microsoft Intune, which is easily enabling remote desktop access for employees on any device, in any place, allowing you to do that, bring your own device, personal device, corporate device mix. And then you've got the business intelligence that comes underneath it. So you've got the ability to leverage AI, you've got the ability to leverage all of the tools and the power that comes from the Microsoft platform. Lewis, anything you wanted to add onto that?
No, I'll talk further about it on the other slides.
Right, perfect. So yes, I've talked about there being multiple flavors, and this is kind of the easiest way to look at it. And if you look to the Microsoft website, you've probably seen this image before. So this is the suite of products that are available at the moment, being the key phrase. So this is the Microsoft 365 suite for small, medium business. We start off with Business Basic, right? Business Basic does exactly what it says in the 10. It ticks all the boxes for you in a basic way. It offers you cloud-based services with web-based Office applications. Nothing else, no bells and whistles. It functions in the simplest way possible without having to make things any more complicated. The big thing is this is all tied for Business Basic using Entra ID Basic or the free version. It does not have any of the premium features. It's literally enough to give you authentication, but that's about it. As you move up the line, you get the business standard offering. Now, I'm going to be transparent with you. That is where most people sit. Most people sit in that business standard vertical at the moment. It's probably why you're on this call. That's probably where most of you sit at the moment. And that gives you the same features as Business Basic, alongside the desktop installable applications, the ability for you to install the traditional, what we would refer to as box product Office suite. You will notice there is also a Copilot logo in there. Now that's Copilot for Business, and that is essentially what was Bing Chat, if I'm correct in saying that, Lewis. It's the enterprise web-based version. You can basically wrap controls around it. It's not Copilot for 365. It's not the product that gives you the full Copilot integration into your Office applications. That is an add-on. That's not included in the license. It's a bit misleading, which is why I wanted to raise it.
Yeah, that is correct. Just to add on that, with Business Premium, we'll get onto this. You have a whole range of security and compliance tools like data loss prevention, using Purview, using retention policy, stuff like that. When you use the free version of Copilot and sign in with a business account with a Business Premium license, you can apply rules to that web version. So if you're encouraging your users to use AI and you're currently saying use ChatGPT, Llama, Gemini, whatever it is, you should try and guide them towards Copilot, because it gives you control over what they're putting into AI. That's one of the biggest risks that corporations face with AI is, where's my data going? Who's using my data to train their AI models?
Thanks, Lewis. And I think, so as we move on to the final piece of this slide, so talking about Business Premium, you'll notice exactly what Lewis just said, right? So you've got the same things you have in Business Standard, but what's added is that comprehensive security piece. And it's quite hard to read potentially, but what we've got inside that is the first piece is Microsoft Intune, which is an MDM and MAM product, so mobile device manager, mobile application management platform. You've then got enhanced security features. You've got the increased Entra P1 license, which gives you the actual features you want, not just giving you the basic features. You have the ability to access all of the Defender suite and the pieces that come with that. I mentioned Intune. So we do a lot of talking about Intune elsewhere, and I think one of the things is that Microsoft have done what Microsoft does well and rebadged Intune multiple times. The thing is, the plan you get inside of Business Premium is Intune Plan 1. That is the plan that everyone wants for Intune. Very few people buy Plan 2 or Intune Suite. So actually, what you're getting if you're on Business Premium is the features you need. So the biggest thing here is it is a mobile device and mobile application manager. It is a enterprise grade product. There is no difference that you're going to notice if you're using Business Premium and Intune or the Office 365 enterprise range and Intune. They are the same product and gives you all the features. So it gives you that kind of enterprise grade management from day one. And it works across every operating system that you would probably see in your business. Windows, Mac OS, iOS and Android, as well as Linux support for those of you who are development companies and have Ubuntu for development sessions, or even if you are a Chrome OS house and you're either in education or you're in the space where you've come from G Suite and you use Chromebooks, you can still manage those from there. The biggest thing is it gives you simplified application and device management from a single pane of glass that is directly tied to your 365 users. And when we get on to talking about security, that's key, right? Because you know who your users are, you know who your devices are. And if we're going to start talking about things like risk-based conditional access, that is a function that you're going to want to have. Lewis, I'm not sure if there's more you wanted to add to that.
Just to reiterate the point that if you're looking to convince management, finance directors, whoever is you need to convince to make the jump from business standard to business premium, Intune is one of the biggest sellers in that area. Most people do upgrade to premium just to get Intune. Because once you're in Intune, that probably means you can scrap some of your on-prem stuff. If you're still using AD, if you use an SCCM or whatever you're doing, you can scrap that and obviously switch it over.
It's a good point to raise, actually, when it comes to pricing, is realistically the price of buying business standard or business basic plus Intune is very close to the price of buying business premium. If you're on standard and you buy Intune Plan 1, you're pretty much at the same cost, but you're losing 4 other features that you would get by upgrading to premium. If you're on basic, you're not quite there, but ultimately you're still missing all the core features you need to deliver the product. So yeah, there is a reason for the logic of bundling everything together under a single banner and not buying the a la carte license options. So when we talk about Intune, it has a lot of capabilities, and this is going to highlight a few of the capabilities Intune has for each operating system. So when we're talking about Windows or Windows operating systems, so that's Windows 10 at the moment is my key there. Windows 10 until October 2025, and then that platform will be end of life and end of support. And then Windows 11 moving forward it offers device configuration, so it can fit your business needs. You can lock down, control, and restrict the device. This is your replacement for group policy. So if you're currently using an on-premise Active Directory service and group policy, you can move to Intune, you can move to Entra ID, and you can get rid of your domain controllers. A lot less to manage, right? We talked about simplifying management and productivity. That's the way to do it. You can do app deployment, app management. If you've ever had to deploy a new version of Sage, a new product to your laptops, and you're a small business, even 10 users, that can be very, very difficult, right? You're going around and you're having to essentially physically install that on each machine. You don't have to do that with Intune. You can just add the application to Intune and deploy it to your machines. Same for updates. You can add them to Intune and deploy it out. Nice and simple, and it just works. You can remove applications the same way as well. So it's not just installing, you can pull them off. You then have the ability to enforce security policies. You can set and enforce security policies to protect your corporate data, stop people copying it, and moving it to where you don't want them to. You can put proper restrictions on your data. You can ensure device compliance. Now, the biggest thing here is you can stop people essentially maliciously playing with the devices intentionally or unintentionally that could put your devices at risk, or stop it from someone being a case where someone loses a device. We've all seen it. You leave your laptop on a train, it gets stolen. The compliance policies can be used to restrict what happens in those scenarios to protect your corporate data. And then the big thing is, if any of you have ever used the Windows Update service or run WSUS on premise, you know that Windows updates are the bane of everyone's life. One, because staff always click the restart later or do updates later option. And two, because the Windows Update Services system has been archaic for a long time. That has gone with Intune. It uses a cloud-based version of the Windows Update Service. You don't have to manage it. All you have to do is say who the devices are, when you want to be updated. And the thing is, you can stop people being able to do that restart later thing. You can say, right, no, you are going to restart it now because I told you to. And it's a great place to be, especially if you've got high-risk security patches that come out. We've all seen it from Microsoft, things that have been in the news, major update, you need to update your machine now, and then you find a device 4 weeks later that the person's failed to patch repeatedly. You can get away from that completely. Why don't we talk about, sorry.
I was just going to say, if anyone is concerned about the jump from Active Directory SCCM to Intune, Intune can do everything SCCM and AD GPOs can do and more. On the GPO side, you can quite literally export your GPOs as XML files and import them into Intune. I wouldn't recommend that though, because it can get a little bit buggy. You might as well recreate the policies in Intune the correct way using configuration profiles, as James said. But yeah, the jump between the two is not as big as some people think it is, and it's reasonably easy.
Exactly. Moving on to Mac OS, obviously, some of you on this call will be using Mac devices that, like me, living in the right side of the space. I am joking. Obviously, the fact is simple. You'll hear a lot of other mobile device management companies saying that they are the only one that can do device management for Apple, blah, blah, blah. I'm here to say that's rubbish. Apple have a standard for device management that's unlocked to every approved mobile device management platform, Intune being one of them. So if you're looking at another MDM for Mac management, or you already have another MDM and they're telling you they're the only product that can do it, it's rubbish. And you can move all of your devices under a single management platform. It's quite unique for Microsoft to be able to manage all of these platforms under one window, right? Whereas a lot of these other products are a Mac MDM, a Windows MDM, a phone mobile management platform. They're not a unified mobile device management platform. So if you're using another tool, Intune's definitely one to look at. It can do everything you need it to do from day one. So that's device enrollment. So that's buying a new device and making sure it's automatically assigned to your business. It's secured, it's locked in, and that uses the AID system, so the automatic deployment enrollment platform that's from Apple, or you may have heard of it as Business Manager or Schools Manager, depending on whether you've been working with Apple for a long time. You can also do direct enrollment as well if you need to. It also supports Apple's volume purchasing program. So if you're deploying apps from the App Store, you can buy them through the VPP program and deploy them via Intune. You can do app wrapping. So you can basically roll up and install applications that don't naturally have the ability to install them easily. That's all something that you can handle and is really easy to crack on with. It now also supports single sign-on. Now, this is where Microsoft step one step beyond their competition, and you can do true SSO on Mac OS. Now, so I think that I would have loved to have 15 years ago, running a very large Mac organization that we had to use Active Directory for, and it was not very pretty. Now you can have it so that the user signs in with their 365 email address, and that ties automatically to their Apple ID and their device and signs them in, but they don't need to know what their Apple ID is or need to know what their local account is. Takes away all of the headaches of managing a Mac environment that previously existed. And you do have the extended configuration management, so controlling the full macOS device settings. Moving on to the mobile side of things, so iOS, iPadOS, Android, kind of the same. They're all treated in the same way, but it's just slightly different configuration. But ultimately, you can set device configurations, restrictions, and controls for the devices. So that's nice and easy to set up and configure. You have the ability to do application deployment, so that's distributing both private and public applications, as well as line of business applications. So the three differentiators there are private applications or applications you've developed that are not signed, which you can deploy. So they're apps that you've built in-house. Public applications are the ones that are from the app stores. So from your Google Play Store, from your iOS store. And then line of business applications tend to be ones provided to you which are signed but restricted. So you often see this on Android devices for things like the Zebra scanners and things like that. It's essentially the integration that pulls those together. And then you do have the ability to complete remote actions on these devices. The biggest one, if they're devices that are corporate owned and enrolled as corporate devices, you can do device locking, password resetting, and ultimately device wipe and lost mode, which means you can actually prevent those devices from ever being used, sold, and the data stolen should someone leave them on a train, have them picked from their pocket, or just get a bit clumsy and drop them down a drain or something. You know, you can take complete control of those devices in the way that you'd want to.
Just on that bit, that's very much for corporate devices. And James, I can speak about the app protection a bit more if you want. Give you a break. I'll probably place a bet down that more than half of the people in this group wouldn't be able to say that confidently they manage their BYD experience with their users. You know, how many of you guys allow your users to connect in with something like Apple Mail, SMTP access? I imagine the answer is quite a lot, because users like to use Apple Mail, especially iPhone users. Most likely directors love to use it. And you have no control over that data. If you log into 365 through Apple Mail, Apple will back it up. It's now stored in iCloud. You can restore it without ever connecting to 365 again. There is so much there's so much risk in BYOD that is not realized. Same with like Microsoft Teams. People have it downloaded on their phones. Do you have any control over what they're doing on Teams? Could they download data? Could they screenshot things? And this is where app protection comes in. So app protection for both iOS and Android basically wraps the application in a container, which means it containerizes the app and all the data within it. And you can apply policies to that. So top one, data relocation policies. You can stop people saving things. You can stop the copy and paste function. So if we have it on our phones here, you know, we all use our personal phones, but we have app protection policies against Outlook and Teams. If I try and copy and paste anything out of Outlook and Teams, it just doesn't let me. If I try to save a file that James sends me, doesn't let me. And that's the key point, which I probably should have said first, is you have to use Outlook and Teams for this to work. It's any Microsoft 365 core application. So Teams, Outlook, Word, the Office app, Copilot app, whatever it is. If it's got the Microsoft publisher, it will support it. This is a really good feature. It ticks a lot of boxes for protection and data loss prevention. The biggest problem we see is user acceptance from moving, like from Apple Mail to the Outlook app. It is reasonably different. It doesn't sync up with the Apple Calendar, stuff like that. You can also do biometric access for it, so you can allow the user to access it with a biometric PIN, so that's Face ID or your Touch ID, or you just have a manual PIN. So here we have a manual PIN and we have to input it every 30 seconds, which is super annoying, but it's also super secure. It means that even if my phone is unlocked and I give it to my partner, she wouldn't be able to log into Outlook and see the data on there. You can also do app level protection. So you can change how the applications communicate on the phone. So if you've ever gone to Outlook or the Teams app, it will most likely ping off to the Authenticator app and then ping back. Apps can communicate internally on phones. You can control how that happens. And the most important feature is selective wipe. The biggest issue that I've seen is companies allowing people like Apple Mail, it caches the data, they leave the company, they try and wipe it through Exchange, and it just doesn't always work. With selective wipe, you can you can remove access to the Outlook and Teams app, and it will just remove the data instantly. And then finally, encryption. It's for iOS, the encryption method is Apple's encryption method. For Android, Microsoft had their own encryption method for the application itself. And one thing that isn't on here, oh, it is access policy. Yeah, so you can restrict access for those applications. So if a iOS device, Android device is jailbroken or rooted, you can say you can't log in to 365 if it doesn't have a pin on it. If it's not in the right location, it ties into conditional access policies, which we'll talk about a little later on about it. There's so much control you can have over it, and obviously this is all included in Business Premium. James, anything you want to add?
No, but you've covered it. The only thing I was going to say was about when you talk about the traditional method of using kind of the exchange protection to do kind of pull mail off of devices, it never worked, right? I think everyone was confident that you thought you had it sorted, but it would never do it. At least with these protections in place, as soon as you press that button to say the device no longer has access to the data, it no longer has access to the data. And therefore, from a sort of GDPR point of view, from an information security officer point of view, you're ticking all the boxes you need to. Great place to come into talking about security. I mentioned Entra earlier. So there is a version of Microsoft Entra, which again was previously called Azure Active Directory. Microsoft rebadged it to Entra 18 months ago, and you'll still find references on the Microsoft website to Azure Active Directory, but essentially it all should say Entra. There's 3 plans. There's a basic plan. There's Plan 1, Plan 2. The one you get inside the Business Premium is called Plan 1, and it kind of, for most people, will do everything you need it to. There is a few limited scenarios where you may need the Plan 2 add-on. We tend to see that more in the biomed space, in kind of very heavily regulated environments. You may need Plan 2, but Plan 1 will give you what you mostly need. The reasons that Plan 1 is so important is the 3 things that are shown here. The first one being conditional access, and Lewis will talk about conditional access till the cows come home, but ultimately, realistically, conditional access is so important because it's taking not just passwords and MFA one step further, but it's also taking the kind of wider protection stance, that kind of zero trust approach, and scaling it out. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, most SMEs we talk to have these licenses and they do not leverage them properly, or they leverage them in a way they think is the least disruptive, but ultimately is essentially not secure. So we're going to talk more about conditional access, and you'll also hear the term today, risk-based conditional access, or RBAC, and it's the same kind of principle. We'll talk through that. There's also then the self-service password reset, which is so good if you move away from on-premise AD and you move people to Entra ID, the ability to say to them, right, if you enroll a phone, if you enroll another method of recovery, when you get your password and you can't remember what it is anymore, you can go to the Microsoft website on any other device and reset your password. Gone are those days of having calls where they're like, it's a Saturday morning and I've locked myself out of my account. Can you reset it for me? Self-password reset is awesome. Let's reduce the amount of work we will have to do. And then you get the Azure Information Protection Suite, which gives you the ability to do classification, labels, do protection of data, giving sensitive data, tagging, all those kind of things. This is more important than ever when we talk about the next step of the evolution, which we've already kind of mentioned, which is Copilot, right? With Copilot has the ability to dive into any data that it sees on your 365 tenant, unless the data is classified in a way that tells it not to do it. And Azure Information Protection is kind of the gateway, the key to making that happen. So for those of you who don't use tags or labels at the moment, you're going to have some challenges if you're looking at rolling out Copilot and you want to kind of restrict what data it can see. Anything that I missed, Lewis?
No, just on the self-service password reset. It's a really good tool, and you can decide how the MFA works for it. So you can have a user do 2 prompts for authentication. So the Microsoft Authenticator app, and then maybe a mobile phone text or an email text, something like that. When I talk about it, some people think it's not as secure, but just to close that gap, it is obviously secure.
Good point, worth making. So let's talk about let's talk about conditional access in a bit more detail. So we mentioned conditional access on that top slide a little bit. So ultimately, conditional access is the ability to wrap around when someone is connecting into the system and provide multiple points of check to say, can this user access the system? Now, what we're looking at here is saying, does it need to be just full on blocked, or do we need to require another proof of authentication? So you don't have to be super hard on every connection that comes from somewhere you don't expect it to and say, no, it's blocked. You can say, well, cool, we're just going to prompt for MFA again, because that's normally enough to stop attacks. The biggest reason to do this is because of those the attacks that we see that steal cookies off of devices, replicate cookies, and use cached sessions to access 365. If you've got conditional access and risk-based conditional access set up, what you're going to do is you're going to stop them being able to work, because what will happen is the IP address will be different, potentially the device OS type will be different, the location will be different, and therefore what will happen is conditional access will be triggered and it will go, oh, actually, this isn't right. So it uses what they refer to as common signals. So that's who the user is, so who the user is, what groups they're a member of, what IP location they're coming from, what the device state is. And the device state is directly linked to Intune. So that's related to the status in Intune. So is it compliant or not compliant with your business's security standards? It will look at your application access as well. What it's going to then do is make decisions based on that. So it's looking for real-term context. So it's looking at, is this something that breaks our policy? The best example I can give you of this is saying, we're a business that's based in the UK and our staff only work in the UK. So if someone connects in from America, what should happen? Well, it might be that one of your directors is on a business trip to America. So you might go, great, well, if they're accessing from a US-based IP and it's on a device that we trust and it's a user we trust, or a user in a specific group, the group directors, then what we do is we just prompt for MFA just to check it's right, and it'll just get an MFA prompt every time they connect from that IP address, and it'll just ask for a double check. Or it might be saying, we have no ties to any business entities in China or Russia, so therefore, if the IP address is from China or Russia, regardless if we trust the device or anything else, we hard block that connection. It's the ability to restrict that attack surface. It's so easy now for people just to spoof IP addresses that actually you need to go one step beyond, and that's where the steps inside conditional access become so important. It is a minefield would be a nice way to put it. It is a very complex thing, and if you get it wrong, you can lock your administrator account out. If you've never used conditional access before, then it's definitely worth, as Lewis said at the front, give us a shout, and then I'll let you have some time with Lewis to go over how conditional access can work for your business. You obviously can set session controls on it as well in terms of how long this behavior lasts for. And then the big thing is it looks at that risky detection. So if you've ever looked at the Entra ID logs for in your system, it will tell you when something about an account's login doesn't feel right. We've done it before to spoof the testing. So if I log on and I'm logging on from macOS as a user, Lewis logs on 10 seconds later from a Linux or a Windows device. Inside of the Entra ID protection logs, it will go, oh, hold on, this user's logging in from multiple places at once. It hates it even more if you do it with different IP addresses. It's like, what's going on here? Those behaviors can be used to inform the decisions that it makes. Anything to add on that?
Just if you're looking for more complex control, there's Entra ID Plan 2, which offers risk-based conditional access, which effectively allows Entra ID to make AI-backed decisions on logins, and then you have the decision. So it will tag it with a low, medium, high risk. You can then tag what you want to do. So medium users have a password reset, low users just have MFA, high risk users have accounts locked, whatever you want. and it's an extra step for security. Something that's not mentioned on here, or we did talk about, is this all ties in with Intune. So if you wanted users to not log in from Apple Mail, that's how you do it through conditional access. If you wanted users to only be able to log in from Intune registered devices, that's how you do it from here. It allows you full control over your 365 infrastructure, and allows you to break down all cloud apps, just Intune, app protection policies like I spoke about. The possibilities are endless for it, and it gives you that full control basically.
While you're talking, Lewis, I'm going to let you talk about data loss prevention because it's one of your favourite things.
Okay, so data loss prevention is probably the least used tool that comes with Business Premium, mostly because people don't realize it's included in their Business Premium license, and they just haven't been told the features, or they don't care for. With new regulations coming in from various regulatory bodies, sensitivity tagging and data loss prevention is becoming more of a requirement. So the most important one, I think, well, the reasons at the top of the list there is sensitivity labels. So within 365, you're able to tag emails and data with sensitivity labeling. So if a lot of regulatory bodies require you to tag data, so the normal go-to is something like public, internal, internal confidential, external confidential, then highly confidential, and you can do that on emails and SharePoint and OneDrive and Teams. You can enforce it as well, so something called mandatory tagging, which basically enforces a user to put a tag on it before they can send an email or save a document, which is super important because it can stop important things getting leaked out. So if you have intellectual property on your emails and you're talking about a highly sensitive piece of information, you tag that as highly sensitive. You can then apply policies to these sensitivity labels that say, for example, anything tagged as highly confidential cannot be sent externally, so it will automatically block that email if someone tries to send it externally. It's another level of protection for your data, and that's the same for SharePoint. You can have it so it stops users from sharing it externally, stops users from sharing it indefinitely. It allows a lot of control over the data. Policy tips. So this ties into the sensitivity labels. Microsoft in Outlook or in SharePoint will notify you if it's detected confidential information. So this isn't necessarily included fully in Business Premium. You are given a preset of defined data, so GDPR data, credit card numbers, personal national insurance numbers, stuff like that. That's preset information Microsoft has. If you get the E5 compliance license, you can make your own trainable data to find that information. But let's say I go send a credit card or a passport number externally to a random email. I can have a prompt that says, you've just tried to send this email. Are you sure this is correct? You can block it. You have so much control over that. Content analysis. So
exactly how it will look. Just the white.
Content analysis. So when you sign up for Business Premium, Microsoft will crawl your entire 365 infrastructure and it will find that data. So if you have GDPR data stored in your 365, it can find it. And you can do that right now if you're Business Premium. Go to Purview and you can see your content analysis and see a real-time view of how much confidential data is stored. It's not perfect. Obviously, it can mistake things like passport numbers, credit card numbers. You know, if you're using an invoice system, sometimes it picks them up, but you can just exclude it and it will learn. And encryption is another one you can add for emails and documents. And when I say encryption, I don't mean like TLS encryption. I don't mean technical encryption. I mean user encryption. So if I sent James a encrypted email, so it's highly confidential, it's been tagged as highly confidential, I want encryption to be applied, he opens it, he has to open it on Outlook. If he tries to open it outside of Outlook, it will prompt for MFA. So let's say I send it to his Gmail account. For him to open that email, another email gets sent to his account, basically confirming and getting a code. It's another level of protection for the data. And then comprehensive DLP, basically what we just spoke about. You can have an option to override it. Some companies prefer manual, so you don't have to do mandatory tagging. It can be an optional thing, which a lot of companies go for. But as I said, a lot of cyber insurance, cyber essentials might even do it later in the future. They are making changes to it, but definitely regulatory bodies like the FCA, the MOD, and a few others require sensitivity tagging now.
So I mentioned at the start, right? Defender is Microsoft's product for security in general, right? There's multiple flavors of Microsoft Defender. It's a bad name because Defender has a history that goes beyond the 365 era and maybe worries people a little bit. It shouldn't worry you. Is where I want to come from. This is Microsoft have done a huge amount of investment over the last few years in buying up a number of products, a number of companies that offer defense protection methodologies for both endpoints, servers, and for cloud products, and they have rebadged them as Defender and rolled them together. So whilst it has the same name as a product which was terrible, and I can say it was terrible because I don't work for Microsoft, it's not that same product. It's just using the same name for familiarity. So Microsoft Defender Plan 1 is a cloud-based email filtering service that provides protection against malware, viruses, and harmful links with real-time safeguards. Essentially, it's a full 365 protection suite. So if you're not leveraging this, you have Business Premium at the moment, you're not taking the most out of your licensing, and you may well be able to increase your level of security near enough straight away, right? So, and if you're using business standard or below, you don't have any of these features. You have what would be referred to as Exchange Online protection, which I'd like to refer to a bit like Defender Lite. It's a bit like having a Diet Coke. It doesn't have quite the same punch as a full flavor Coke, and that's kind of the way to look at it. So inside of Defender for 365 Plan 1, you get advanced anti-phishing techniques. So it has the ability to do things to protect your mailboxes, including real-time click protection, and the ability to check for safe links and safe attachments. So, if you're in a position where you open your users will not check what they're doing or just click links and click files. Actually, every URL and every attachment, when you have Defender for 365 turned on, is rewritten and has a level of scanning put on it when you click it. So this was, for about 2 or 3 years, was the biggest way that attackers would work, is they would send a load of emails with a URL in it. The URL at the time it went through your filtering product wasn't malicious, so it would get all the green ticks. And a lot of products would just at that point go, yes, this is safe, and then not check it again. And then what the attackers would do is then wait a couple of hours and then compromise the website. So by the time your users did click on it, they would then get hit with a load of ransomware and a load of problems. We've thankfully come beyond that now, and that's where the ability for real-time checking of links becomes so important, and it checks them as your user clicks them. So it actually goes to the URL, opens URL, and goes to see if the issue is something that, if the site is something that has any issues at that point. It's a great feature. These are what I would call huge value add features. If you have Business Premium and you're not using them, go turn them on, go enable them, make the most out of them. If you're using Business Standard, this is a great reason to upgrade, just to have these features and to get the value that comes out of having a full wraparound security product on top of your 365 environment. I wanted to move on to talking about 2 features which don't directly sit inside the Business Premium line, but are things that benefit massively from you having Business Premium, and they are features around the ability to give people secure desktops that you control based off of your 365 environment, your 365 licensing. It's also worth demystifying, which is why we've put these onto the slides, and there's 2 flavors. The first is Windows 365. Windows 365 is a cloud-based PC. It is a virtual machine which is dedicated to your user, and you buy as a subscription that goes onto your 365 environment, And essentially, it is a single user interface. It's not a pooled machine. You don't deploy an image to it. It's a base Windows 11 machine, which has whatever resources you purchase as part of the subscription. And the user has access to it, and they access it via the remote desktop app on any device. So it works. So if you're coming from an iPad, if you're coming from an iPhone, coming from a Windows device. But it's a great way to offer a secure desktop, especially if you work with contractors. If you have people who work for you, but only maybe 1 day a week, and you don't want to give them a device because it's expensive, but you need to wrap around the applications and the security principles that you use, then Windows 365 is the way to do that. The big thing is you can enroll Windows 365 machines into Intune. So you get Intune as part of your Business Premium product. If you enroll your Windows 365 environment into that, you can deploy custom applications into that environment. So say your contractor is a credit controller who's going to look after your Sage environment. Well, they can have Sage deployed to it, and you haven't got to worry about them manually doing it. But it also means that when they're not working for you, that machine isn't accessible to them because you'll have all the abilities to control it via conditional access. I've left all the features on the screen there, but Windows 365 ultimately is a subscription-based service. You buy the machine. They're non-customizable in the kind of, you can't do anything to them pre-boot or pre-build, but you can configure them via Microsoft Intune. The flip side of that is Azure Virtual Desktop, which again, as the name alludes to, is part of Azure. Now, the difference between the two is that Azure Virtual Desktops, you have the ability to either deploy Windows 10, Windows 11, or a full server desktop with customization, which you can then do a custom template for. So you can do more of a traditional UBI out-of-box experience approach to device management. It may be something that's more applicable for you. If you have lots of contractors, 20, 30, and you want to give them a single unified experience and you want to make sure they're running on a Windows Server environment because that's what you're used to, great, you can do that. This is charged on a per use basis. So you pay per use model, and you have varying different levels of performance machines, everything from 1 CPU, 2 gig of RAM up to machines with virtual graphics cards and all those kind of things. Again, fully manageable via the tools that we've already talked about, via Intune, via conditional access, and all the pieces that come with that puzzle. So we've talked about a lot about Business Premium. So let's just recap some of those Business Premium benefits. So Microsoft 365 Business Premium brings together the key capabilities you need to enable work from anywhere. Collaborate using Microsoft Teams, secure identity data and devices using Intune, provide remote access and virtual desktop using Windows 365 or Azure Virtual Desktop. As a customer, it eliminates the need for multiple points of solution. It helps reduce your operational costs. An integrated, lower cost of support, reducing help desk time, reducing maintenance costs, and simplifying licenses. So you can focus on what's important to you, which is doing your job right, running your businesses, making the most out of it. Ultimately, it's the combination of everything that Microsoft does well into a single SKU. Now, up until a few years ago, there wasn't anything at the high end for SME, SMB. Microsoft had the standard and basic offerings, but there was no premium equivalent. And Microsoft realized that actually that's where the value is for many people, is to roll down some of those enterprise features into the business SMB, SME space. And that's what we're looking at with Business Premium. I love this slide because it's massively overcomplicated for what it shows. So let's talk about, let's just recap that layered security approach that Business Premium gives you. Again, this is the major difference when we talk about Business Standard versus Business Premium, is all of the security and compliance pieces. So the first thing, starting on the left, is it gives you identity security. So you've got Entra ID features like MFA. See, it says Azure AD there. Told you they still have it littered the places that are incorrect. It has self-service password resets. It brings conditional access, and it also offers something we haven't mentioned, which is dynamic groups. So you can have groups that are made based on user types and varying queries. It's great fun, and you can spend hours down the rabbit hole making dynamic groups. You then have true device security. So you've got Microsoft Defender antivirus. So that's the installable Defender platform to go onto devices. So you can use Defender to protect your endpoints. You have the full centralized management of laptops and desktops via Intune. You have remote wipe and remote loss protection via Intune. You've got BitLocker management. So if you want to do full device encryption on your devices, you don't have to buy another product to do that or manage it manually. You can use BitLocker and Intune to do that. You can enforce strong PIN requirements. You can deploy Wi-Fi profiles, VPN profiles. You can do all that inside of the Intune platform. You then layer on top of the great applications that Microsoft already give you, application security. So as Lewis mentioned, you can restrict copy and paste. You can prevent corporate data being moved into the personal side of a device, all via Intune app protection policies. You have the advanced threat protection to protect you against malware and zero-day attacks on your Exchange environment, or your Exchange Online environment, sorry. You've got data loss prevention to monitor sensitive data from being transmitted. And you have email restrictions like do not forward or always encrypt. So useful to just provide some base level of protection. And as Lewis mentioned, there's many compliances out there that require this as part of their function. And then finally, you've got the document security piece, which gives you the ability to use Azure Information Protection to classify documents for secure sharing, included in Teams. You've got the ability to revoke access to documents, to track sensitive documents. And this becomes hugely important when we talk about Copilot, but also when we talk about meeting your compliance requirements as it stands. So Microsoft ultimately want to show you that this is about reducing your costs and simplifying your costs. So I'm just going to build this slide out because it's a lot easier. So if you were to look at doing all of these things separately, now the prices on the left are for point products that you may well have heard of, but realistically, as I mentioned, think about things like device management with another MDM. Think about a single sign-on tool like an authentication product similar to an Okta or something in that vein. Think about advanced email protection from a third party. Think about remote access solutions like a team viewer, like a log me in. Think about endpoint detection and response products from whoever you would want to go to. Think about antivirus products, those together. Realistically, all those alongside productivity apps and file storage and chat-based collaboration. So you can probably guess who the productivity app and file storage that they're referencing there for $12 is, and who the chat-based collaboration that they're referencing is. Ultimately, you put all those together, you're looking at around $45, about £40 a month for those products. Realistically, you get all of that and a bit more with Business Premium for $22, which is what, £18, I think is the retail price. I wish they put them in pounds because I can't. You can see at the bottom, they have referenced there some of the products they're directly talking about, Okta, IBM Mass, products like that. Ultimately, this is a great place for you to be. If you want to make cost savings, efficiency savings, then wrapping it all into Business Premium makes complete sense. So, as we bring this session to an end, I do have some time for some question and answers in a second. I suppose, realistically, I'm more than happy to drop it in the chat. What are your overall thoughts? It'd be great if you could share any learnings or comments from today. You don't have to do that in the chat directly. You're more than welcome for you to email through to Lewis and I. Obviously, we're running these sessions on behalf of Microsoft. So any feedback is both for us as Planet and obviously as your presenters and your trainers today, but also go back to Microsoft because they're the ones who prepare this content and are helping us with bringing these to you. It would also be good for you to think about how you can apply your getting the most from your Microsoft 365 solutions and have a thought about if any of those features or which of them would help your business the most. And ultimately, if you do have any questions, anything you would like us to answer, then do feel free to pop them in the chat. Lewis, hopefully you've been looking through the discussion points whilst I've been talking. So yeah, you can address any of those.
We can go through them now. We'll go from the top to bottom. So there seems to be a real trend here from Sam, Tom, and Kenneth about compliance and data loss prevention. I could talk about it all day. It depends where you are. If you have Business Premium at the moment, definitely go take a look. If you're struggling to set it up or you don't have it, get in contact with us. We can do 30-minute demos of sensitivity labels, which is what most people go for. There's other things like retention policies to hold data for X amount of days, stuff like that, that we can show in a lot more detail. And we can set that up for you as a project or whatever you want to do there. People using Copilot. So there's 2 no's and a yes. Alex said he doesn't have his data in SharePoint. That's obviously a huge con for Copilot. Copilot obviously requires as much data to work as possible, and it will work better with more data.
I suppose it's a good point to reference to that point around Copilot. So from the roadmap that we've seen for Microsoft 365 Copilot, there is no intention to add any form of connector or API to integrate directly data that sits on file systems. I can understand why, because building the exclusions and the controls based around Windows file servers or an SMB share is going to be a huge problem for Microsoft. One of the big things that we've mentioned through this is security, right? And obviously the tagging being a huge thing. And obviously those tagging functions don't exist on on-premise environments. If anything, I can see that Microsoft will extend the Copilot access to Azure files and the storage in the cloud based on Azure, but that has those tagging functions in a different manner built into it. So it kind of makes sense. But yeah, it's always going to be a limitation. The data has to be inside of 365 for Copilot to make value of it. And you can see it make great value of the data it has access to. Without that, yeah, it's not going to have a lot of value. Sorry to interrupt you, Lewis.
That's okay. Second one, what's important to your business? Everyone put security, productivity, and costs. They've all pretty much tie up. But again, if you need help convincing anyone, get in touch. To get Business Premium, please get in touch because we can definitely help on that front. What we hope to get out today. Hopefully these have all been answered. We've covered Business Premium in quite a bit of detail.
Well, if not, it's your fault, right? That's what I'm going to say. I suppose, yes, talking about the AI piece, I suppose that ultimately, we see it, as Lewis mentioned at the front, Microsoft are 100% in on AI. This is only going to become more integrated, and obviously, it will make a business impact to every business. I know that there's a lot of people that are still skeptical of it, but it will make a difference. And I know that even to a degree, some of the owners of our business were a bit skeptical about the value we were going to get out of Copilot. And then you show them after a few days the time that you get back, and people suddenly change their mind. It is an expensive license. We're very aware of that. Having to justify purchasing the license for the organization, it is an expense. The thing to think about when you're looking at a Copilot value proposition is how much time it will get you back, and even just buying it for one user and showing that can be enough. Now, on Copilot licensing, really quickly, Copilot is licensed as a per month cost, but you're committed to pay for a year. So it's like £22 per user per month. It's about 160 quid a year. But you are committed to buy that license. There's no month-by-month option at the moment. The reason for that being is they have to Copilot enable your tenant, and there's an underlying cost for Microsoft to do that. So at the moment, whilst that resource is CPU and GPU bound, they need to obviously make allocations for that. So it's one of those things to consider, but it's definitely a product that I would recommend looking at, even if you just try one license.
And then the last one, so both Tom and Kenneth are using AI, looking at the best ways. Obviously, Copilot isn't the only way. The huge pro of Copilot is A, the integration to 365, and B, the compliance behind it. But a lot of businesses are still going to using their own large language models or other services. When we talk about AI, it's not just about chat box. It's loads of things like image recognition, text, language speaking, image generation, video generation. It's all those things. And if you didn't realize, Azure has a whole suite of AI tools which can integrate into 365 and SharePoint and stuff. Not as well as Copilot, but obviously Copilot can't do things like image generation. So and then we had one chat from Alex. Happy Business Premium. Just need to utilize it more. Yeah, that's a lot of people say that, which is I think why Microsoft pushed these webinars. Business Premium has so much to offer. You just got to put in, you got to know what you want to do, and then you obviously got to implement it the right way.
And that's what I was going to come on to, was to say that these sessions can't maybe give you all the answers that you need to how to make the most out of the product set, right? So if you do feel that you want to have a deeper conversation, that's the advantage to Planet running these, is we do have the, I have my team as a resource that you can speak to get some further information around how to make the most out of it. So if you leave today and go, actually, I want to dig a bit more into my use case, feel free to reach out. Both of us have calendar links where you can book time with us, and I'm more than happy to discuss your specific requirements as we move forward. Now, I mentioned this is obviously a Microsoft operated content delivery, and obviously at Planet we are providing this to you. Obviously, I mentioned feedback's critical, and obviously there's a URL I've just dropped into the chat. There's also the QR code on the screen. If you could take the 2 minutes just to scan that QR code or go to that link and just put your email address in and provide some feedback, it would be hugely important. It's one of those things where if we don't know what we can do better, or Microsoft don't know how the content can be better, then it's really difficult for us to improve. We are going to be running one of these pretty much every month up until, I would imagine, November. We probably won't do one in December because all of us will be thinking about something else at that point. But it's one of those things of there's lots more of these that Microsoft have given us to run, but we want to know from you where the value is. Obviously, it's the first time that we've delivered a modern work version of this. So yeah, if you can scan the QR code, if you can or click that link and just use your email address you've registered for this webinar and just fill out. I think it literally takes 3 minutes to fill that out. It's hugely important to us, and it makes a difference. It's almost like it's like our school report card. Unfortunately, we need as many of those green ticks as possible to be in a good place. Outside of that, there is a free trial available for Business Premium. So if you're a business standard user, business basic user, and you've never had a trial before, you can actually get hold of some free licenses to try. So it's one of those things where if you want to try it, you can do that. There's a link there. It's an aka.ms one that will give you the upgrade on your tenant to do that. And there's some further documentation, which will probably be mildly confusing because it is directly from the Microsoft website, but the link is there. The question that's just come in around the cost of Copilot licenses. Cost of Copilot is exactly the same regardless if you're an SME or SMB business. There is currently no charity or education discount for Microsoft Copilot licensing. All of that is still charged at the same price. Now, that's not to say that won't change in the future, but at the moment, Microsoft have not offered any discount for anyone to have Copilot. So much so that even includes partners like us. So we have to deliver the courses and the training on this stuff, and we have to buy our own licenses at the same price that you do. So it's there's no way to get a better price on Copilot at the moment. And if anyone finds a way, please let me know, because it will save me a huge amount out of my budget. With all that said, that's us wrapped up for this session. We will be sending out a e-shot and some follow-up pieces for the next one of these events. I say once we've got that feedback from you, that will let us define where the next one should go. All of the courses they've given us are around 90 minutes long. Some of them have a bit more hands-on kind of demos. Some of them are more presentation-based like this, covering everything from Copilot through Dynamics, through the enterprise suite, through Teams Phone. Basically, if there's something you want, there's probably a way for us to deliver it, and your feedback is critical for us to do that. So it just goes without saying, I really appreciate your time and you giving up your morning to be with us, and I hope you can join us in the future. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.